Welcome to the Preferred Walk-On Show. I am your host, Seth Saunders, and we have a very special guest today. It is a monster week in college football and one of the premier games on the docket between the hedges. Saturday night, Alabama and the Crimson Tide are coming to Athens to face off against the Georgia Bulldogs. And to help us preview that monster matchup, we have Emily Grace McWhorter with us of Cover Crimson and Yeah, Alabama. EG, it's great to have you and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm glad y'all reached out. You guys were ahead of the game. You said, listen, we're going to get you locked in about a month ago so we would be able to debrief this game together.
Yes, we are in, I think, season 5 now. So we have learned that it's better to be early than it is to be late on stuff like this, especially as calendars go. And this was an easy one to forecast, right? You just know, given the history with these two schools, it was going to be rife with storylines and so much drama. And so I do want to start with you because it's my understanding that you are a proud Georgia Southern grad. Am I correct in that?
Yes, Seth. I love this show already. This is great. I get to talk about my alma mater. Yes, I love the Georgia Southern Eagles. Gotta get after those academics. Just kidding. You guys do know what it means.
That's exactly what Coach Russell had in mind.
Yes, exactly. And so, no, I love that program down there. I was able to cover Coach Helton's first season, who came from USC to Georgia Southern 3 seasons ago now. And I got my start there. I owe so much to that university in the town of Statesboro. It's where both my parents went actually as well. So
cool.
I wouldn't be here without Georgia Southern and Georgia Southern basketball. It's where my dad played. And so anytime I can talk about Georgia Southern, Seth, I'm going to take you up on that.
Yes. Oh, I so love that. So, I graduated from William & Mary, and my co-host graduated from JMU when JMU was still FCS in the CAA. So we have a soft spot for programs with FCS roots. So we're delighted to have a Georgia Southern grad on. You're one of us.
Yeah, I am. I'm an advocate, especially with the SEC moving to the 9-game conference schedule.
Yeah.
As a group of 5 product, I have some thoughts on that. I obviously get it for the SEC. The reasoning behind it to be more competitive when it comes to the selection committee and things like that and making sure that you're getting the best matchups possible. But there is a part of me for my group of 5 that's like, we love those matchups where we can get paid to go to these places and sometimes come out with a win, get paid to do it, and in the process get a coach fired. So
that's right. Look at those Memphis Tigers last week. I mean, God, what a game. I've been heartbroken for Arkansas fans the last 2 weeks because, they've played so well. And then to end these 2 games the way they ended them, it's just so tough. Plus, I mean, how can you not love Sam Pittman?
That's what I was about to say.
What a beauty.
He's awesome. And I'll ask you this question. This is great. So I was on with our friends at SEC Network, Peter Burns and Chris Doring.
Yeah.
And this was a couple months ago. And the question was, which coach in the SEC would you call to help you move? It had to be Sam Pittman.
Yeah.
For me, I was
there's reasons for this too, right? Number 1, Sam would absolutely say yes.
Of course. Number
2, he would have a cooler cold beer that he'd bring with him to make everything go smooth.
Exactly.
What an excellent choice.
I know. I was like, it has to be Sam. And just my experience with him, whether it's been, because I've covered Alabama and Auburn. And so I've had both, matchups, and with media, SEC Media Days, he's just a great guy. And I'm always cheering him on. I think that's part of, for Arkansas fans, the angst right now, because they're so close to getting it all put together and they have the talent. I know we're going to preview these games in a couple minutes. We can talk more about it, but I don't know. I feel for my Arkansas SEC fans.
Yeah, I'm with you. And gosh, watching Taylor Green this year has been unbelievable. I mean, he's just been magnetic to watch. Well, look, I'm so delighted you're here. I'm so very interested to get your perspective on this game, especially how embedded you are with the Alabama program and covering that program. Interesting start to the year for them, right? Where they go to FSU, things don't go quite like they want. And I think in a lot of ways, look, we live in a knee-jerk reaction world, especially in college athletics. And for me, kind of what I've thought since week 1 is, boy, it seems like people are throwing dirt on the grave a little bit early here. This is still a roster that's very, very talented. They've still got a lot of stuff in front of them. And look, if you go back and watch that game, I know it didn't look great for them, but we're talking it was 24-17 in the fourth quarter, and there's a game there to be won. And so I am a little more reserved in how I feel this game might actually play out on Saturday night. But what have you seen from this program thus far this year and kind of where they sit?
Yeah, well, I think that, when you're talking about that week 1 matchup, one thing, for the college football fan is you're looking at FSU, and last year they're 2-10. The year before that, they're 10-2. And the year before that, Alabama was the reason that they did not take a trip to the college football playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that for FSU specifically, there was a lot of underlying storylines heading into this game. And something that people have been discussing is we heard all of this preseason hype for Alabama. And, the Josh Pates and everyone was picking Bama to be the national championship because of what we had heard, seen with our own eyes in fall camp, different scrimmages, etc. And I think that that's why it was so shocking week 1 to see what, transpired on the field. I was at that game and it was jarring. And I think that Ty Simpson got a lot of undue criticism in that game when you consider and you look back at that, matchup. He wasn't what he, has been the last 2 weeks. You also have to look at opponent with that as well. But it wasn't all on him. And I think, collectively, it was not the standard of performance that the coaching staff nor the players really expected of themselves. That does not change the outcome. And I think that it shifted right after that to be, what is the response from this? And you look back to last season too, with these losses that Alabama has had, the common denominator really is that they're on the road. And each of the losses are very different and very unique. I think that, the Vanderbilt loss, OU, Michigan, those more kind of have a similar commonality, but the Tennessee one is a little more outlying. But at the end of the day, they're all on the road. So it's, how does this team respond to adversity when they're punched in the mouth? Now, I would say the last 2 games, they've done a good job of that. We've seen Ty Simpson's growth, in the pocket with his composure, his decision-making. There's still some, rotation we're seeing with the offensive line. I don't expect that to change. Same with the defensive line. And then the receivers really started getting that connection point going. So I think that Alabama is in a good spot right now mentally, because from what I'm seeing and hearing, as Deontay Lawson put it, it's exciting to go play Georgia. It's exciting to go play an SEC team. But at the end of the day, this is an opportunity to prove ourselves on the road.
The other thing I'm interested with them this week, they obviously add back a big piece to their puzzle with Jam Miller. And I think not having him, you can't discount that. It's just such a big loss to not have him lining up behind the quarterback. And I do think when they are at their best, historically, Alabama's going to run the football, right? And I think he just gives them an extra dimension to not only be able to do that, but also to catch balls out of the backfield, all these different things. So I'm very interested to see how he looks Saturday night and the extra dimension it gives him. How do you see that? What are they saying about his health and kind of how he's looked as this game's getting ready to be ramped up?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jam. I had an opportunity to interview him over the summer, and just his approach and demeanor is exactly what you want in his position. And I think too, we talk about the run game with Alabama, and I sat down with Coach Cap, the offensive line coach, yesterday, actually. This is a very timely question about the run game and what it looks like, because you're right. People are used to an offense that heavily relies on it, and they can just shove the ball down people's throats, and they're going to get those 4, 5, 6-yard games, and suddenly, they're in the red zone. Well, this offense is a little bit different. Not in a bad way, but I think that Jam is going to add that dimension back into it. But I also wouldn't expect Alabama to fully commit to the run when you have so many weapons at receiver. I mean, you go through that room. I mean, it is just 7, 8, 9 guys deep. And so I think with Jam, another thing that I noticed about him, which I loved, and this was in Tallahassee, even with a, dislocated collarbone, he was still running, drills in his, sweatpants and jersey with his group, and still having that high energy. And another guy that they're getting back this weekend is Tim Keenan. And on the defensive side of the ball, that's a huge, return. So I think health-wise, the bye also definitely worked in, the favor of both teams to kind of prepare for this game, get healthy, and reset in that way. And having both Tim Keenan and Jam Miller, back on the field on Saturday, it's so beneficial for so many reasons. But, that run game, it's going to be kind of an ongoing development. And the offensive line, right, you have some rotation. They're trying to figure out specifically that right guard position, I would say. Just kind of getting guys more reps. Michael Carroll is one of those guys that he's a younger one. So, big stage like in Athens, I'm not sure how much we'll see him, but I think that they're in a good spot. And Coach Cap actually said, the rotation is good because human nature is you get comfortable and you don't want to do that. And so, that competition, that rotation, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
If you were going to point out one player on that roster who could potentially tilt the field, really affect that game that maybe the general public is not looking at or not thinking about, who would you choose?
Yeah, which side of the ball, offense or defense? Or both?
Give me both. Yeah, let's do both.
Okay, let's start with, I'm going to go defense first, and I really like Bray Hubbard. And people that, when I say that name, Bray Hubbard, you may be thinking of FSU performance and, some film that was caught of some loafing. And when I tell you guys, the response from Bray has been exactly what you want in a player. He has faced that criticism head on, but I think if he can continue to have the kind of production he had those following 2 games, which was extremely disruptive, he had 2 picks against Wisconsin. That's what you need in that environment. I think also his skill set leans into that hostile environment that they're going to be facing in Athens. So I think him continuing, as I say this, I'm thinking of another guy too. I think LT Overton is another one that he can really affect this game if he takes it to the next level, especially with those sacks. Alabama has struggled to get the quarterback on the ground. We saw some strides last game, but it hasn't been where, the standard and what the expectation is. So if LT Overton can kind of reach that next step, pressuring the quarterback and finishing it with a sack, especially against Gunnar Stockton, who's a little more mobile than what they saw last year with Carson Beck. I think those are 2 guys on the defensive side of the ball that I'm looking at that can really affect things.
I love that. Isn't it interesting with this matchup this year? We're so used to these programs traditionally where the one thing you don't question or the one thing you hang your hat on is point of attack on both sides of the balls for these rosters. And now this year, it's kind of the opposite, right? They both have questions on the offensive line. They both have defensive lines that haven't been as dominant as they've grown accustomed to over these last decade or so. And so those are the matchups for me Saturday night that I'm most fascinated to see is who is going to win, who's going to have trench warfare in their pocket, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is a great matchup too, because in a lot of ways, Alabama and Georgia, they're pretty evenly matched in some facets. And I think, based on the line, we are seeing that. I'm not sure. What is the line today? Do you know? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, so I had it last night at 3.5, but it may have moved on that. I mean, essentially how I've looked at it is if it was neutral field, everybody's essentially feeling like it's a pick 'em, right? And so that feels right to me. I haven't seen anything with either of these teams where you go, oh, they're going to win. No, because in a lot of ways, Georgia's Tennessee game left me with more questions than answers, It gave answers we didn't have before, I think, about the offensive side. But the flip side is now you have these huge looming questions about the defense and you start going, well, wait a minute. They're not supposed to give up 40 points. They're not supposed to get burnt in the back end like this. And so you start looking at an Alabama roster with Ty Simpson and, with Ryan Williams and Jeremy and all the weapons they have, right? And you start going, oh boy, this could be a little spicy if they can take the top off this and really exploit that. So this is the beauty of this game, and I feel like the beauty of the sport, especially this year, now that we're, 5 years down the NIL road, is that the rosters aren't as deep as they used to be, and because of it, I just feel like there's so much parity across the sport.
I think that's a great way to put it. And I think that, you mentioned at the beginning of this, Alabama's roster is so talented. It's so deep, despite kind of the NIL era and the constant, you're transferring in and out, all of those things. And my offensive player, by the way, is Jeremy Bernard, like you mentioned. I think that he is someone that he has been so consistent and, his leadership too off the field is incredible. And one thing I want to say about that wide receiver room is, and I can't emphasize this enough, that there's so much competition there, right? Because you have, Ryan Williams, Jeremy, Isaiah Horton, who I think Isaiah is really poised to make that next step. We haven't seen, everything that he can do just quite yet. The support and the drive that they provide each other with, it's a very healthy room. And I think that, I remember when I was talking to Ryan after, I can't remember which game that was. It wasn't after FSU, obviously, but every time he received a little bit of praise, and this is the same for Ty Simpson, they immediately put it back off on the other guys in their room, saying how, but Germ, but Isaiah, Rico Scott. Same with Ty Simpson. It was, putting it back on, well, my tight ends did great. My running backs did great. My line protected me, things of that nature. So I think culturally, this team is in a really, really good spot. And I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because, you never really know about kind of the inner workings of these rooms and what the actual feelings are towards each other. But I think that, with that receiver room, it's just so deep and you have so many options to go to. So why would you not, right? If Ty Simpson has time, and I think that's going to be a key on Saturday against Georgia, can the offensive line protect him and give him enough time in the pocket to go through his progressions, to go through that decision-making that has improved so much from week 1 until now?
Yeah, I mean, you look at his completion percentage and how he operates that offense. I think you're right on the money, and that was something Georgia struggled with in Knoxville. I mean, Joey Aguilar had time, and he exploited that defense. And that was the big problem is they just weren't able to get pressure with the front four. And so it's good. I mean, there's so much about this that I
know. We're
I
both
can't wait to
smiling.
like
I'm so
see
excited.
it play out. It's just going to be great. And I think the other thing is obviously these two programs, Alabama for so long, especially under Coach Saban, and now Georgia under Kirby, have really become the cornerstones of prominent programs within the game, right? When you look at the success they've had, national championships, and kind of the standard they've both built. And so I just think whenever they collide, even though the ledger is much farther on the side of Alabama when it comes to on-field success, I just think it sets up for, gosh, man, even if you're not a Georgia follower or an Alabama follower, if you love college football, this is it, right? Like Georgia, Alabama between the hedges, this is what you wait for.
It doesn't get better. And I think it being in Athens this year has, another significant role in this. The last time Alabama was in Athens was 2015. I was 14 years old, revealing my age a little bit. I know.
Boy, that ages me. Bless.
I remember watching it in the basement with, I'm from Atlanta too, so I did grow up around some Georgia fans, but I'm all Georgia Southern. Don't worry.
Yeah.
And I remember it pouring down rain, and I have a vague memory. Never did I expect, 10 years later, I'd be covering the game and I'd get paid to be there. It's crazy. Like every day I have to pinch myself. But I think that this is such an opportunity for Alabama to see what they are made of on the road. What happens when they get punched in the mouth? Because we haven't really seen them respond well to that. And I sat down with Coach defensive coordinator last week, and that's what he was emphasizing. He said, this is a time to answer the bell. This is, can you handle adversity, not play timid, not play on your heels? This is the best opportunity to do that when you get to go to Athens between the hedges, night game. Chills already thinking about it.
Yeah, it's last year I was in Athens for Georgia Tennessee last year.
Okay.
So it was the first time I had been to a night game there since they have added a lot of the in-game, in-stadium improvements, which they have done a very, very good job of. AD Josh Brooks and Director of Facilities Tanner Steins have done an excellent job being intentional about, I think, increasing that and making it more of an atmosphere where you're like, this is big time. And so I think that'll be on display Saturday night, which is obviously exciting for the university and for the program. The other thing is, and this is, I think, interesting from the Georgia side, same point as yours, right? They have been punched in the mouth. However, this has been what I've talked about with folks all week and even some last week is I do think, and I could be wrong about this, I'm wrong a lot, but I think there is a mental block there for the Georgia program. And I think that's a real thing. And so I'm very interested to see how they deal with that, especially if they get down early. And look, they showed great resilience in Tuscaloosa last year.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. And on a night when Carson Beck was not right. He was not. He looked like he was seeing 18 different Crimson Tide jerseys all night long. I had made the comparison. I don't know if you've seen the movie Major League 2, but I said he looked like Rube Baker. He had the yips. Like somebody needed to give him like a Victoria's Secret magazine so he could start reading off the description so he could start hitting receivers.
Good.
Like, he was in a bad place. And so, and credit to Alabama for enforcing that. And then also for them for turning around and making a play to end it. But, I'm fascinated to see that. I have described it, if you're a Georgia follower, that you need an elephant exorcism to happen on Saturday.
You do.
Like,
you do.
There's so many demons.
There's so many demons that they have. And I think what added to it too, Seth, was it was Kalen DeBoer.
Mm-hmm.
It was Kalen DeBoer that beat you.
100%.
That you think you have, this opportunity, even though it's in Tuscaloosa.
Yep.
He's not an SEC guy. He's from Washington. That's like another country.
Yep.
What's concerned with SEC football. And that was such a crazy game. I think there's a lot that you can learn from that game, especially with how well coached, Kirby's teams are. And, it starts with the head coach, the culture of the team. And I think that, second half adjustments, that's like Kirby's jam. We saw a completely different Georgia team in that second half. And, and I'm curious what you think about this. I think if you're an Alabama fan, how Georgia ended the Tennessee game was exactly what you wanted because they were forced to put so much more on tape. And you're also coming off of an emotional win. And there's a letdown that has to take place. And I think we saw that last year with Alabama and Vandy, right? Like that, there was a lot of factors there. But I think if you're Alabama, how Georgia won against Tennessee is what you wanted. Because if, Georgia's one of those teams, and I think there are a few in college football you can point to, they're not going to lose twice like that. You know what I mean? Like, you're not wanting them to be coming off of a loss back at their home stadium having to play you. You want them a little fatigued. You want them maybe with a little bit of relief syndrome. And I think that's something that I'm looking at too with Georgia is like, do you have relief syndrome? Or are you still realizing that, that was almost pretty bad and Tennessee could have put it away in regulation?
I think that's an excellent point, and I kind of look at it as two sides of the coin. Like you look at it as I had said going into that week that for me, the unit you can hang your hat on and tether to is Georgia's defense. You knew what they were going to be, and then they weren't that at all.
Yeah.
And so I do think it gives Kirby and Coach Shu and that defensive staff so much tape to come back and go, hey, look, man, standards up here, and y'all are like here. And so I think that's beneficial on that side, right? Is hopefully they come out rabid and just on fire all night and play to their potential. And so I do think that's a good thing. The flip side of that is you've now had 2 weeks of people opposite of what was happening before Tennessee talking about how good Georgia's offense is, talking about how good Gunnar Stockton is, talking about how he's in the Heisman conference. And so, look, at the end of the day, we always try to keep this top of mind is 18 to 22-year-old kids, right? And so you just don't know week to week to week how they're going to show up mentally, how they're going to handle all this pressure. And so, I have less feel for this game probably than I feel like I ever have when these two teams have faced off, just because there's so much going on and it's so early.
So early.
Answer me this. So I have made the argument that regardless of who loses this game Saturday night, both of them still have most of what they want in front of them. They obviously, with an SEC loss, won't per se control their destiny and path to Atlanta, but both still have a path to 10-2 in Alabama's case or 11-1 in Georgia's case, which I just have a hard time believing that with those records in the SEC, with the name brands of those two programs, that doesn't get them into the CFP. And so, it's one of these things where you go, yes, it's an excellent barometer for both of them, but it's not the stake in the heart of their season, right? And maybe that's less so for Alabama because, boy, their road is tough. Their schedule is a meat grinder. But
it is.
I still think even if they were to lose Saturday night, there's still so much in front of them and everything they want is still gettable.
Yes. And I think that, too, one thing that Alabama fans are also, and I think just, media pundits as well, looking at that FSU loss. That FSU loss can be better than initially anticipated because, again, week one, we're thinking this is a 2-10 FSU team. It was not. Simply put, it was not. So, I want to look at the rest of FSU's season. How do they finish things out? And if your two losses, if you're Alabama, are to, an FSU that they're in, contention for the college football playoffs, in Georgia, who's right there with you, and their only loss is to you, I would agree with you on that. I think for Alabama fans, though, you still don't necessarily fully believe even with a Georgia win. And I know that sounds crazy if you are, outside of this program, just outside looking in, but I do think that it takes a little bit of the sting out of the FSU loss, but it still isn't forgivable. So I don't know. I mean, if an Alabama schedule is so tough, you've Vandy, Missouri, Carolina, Auburn, that Auburn game in Jordan-Hare.
Yeah.
Woo,
which you talk about. My buddy always describes it as like a pet cemetery on Halloween. Like that's what Jordan-Hare is. Like it's just, it's just a spooky place.
It does not make sense. So I covered Auburn for 2 years. So I covered in tandem Alabama and Auburn. That, Seth, was an interesting dichotomy, to say the least.
I'm sure it was.
It was, and every time I would tell people oh, I'm actually from Atlanta, they're praying for you. So sorry you're from Georgia. And I'm like, wait, what? And then it was oh, you didn't graduate from Auburn or Alabama? So sorry. Please leave I'm like, no, what's going on? It did help because I'm extremely unbiased when it comes to these two programs.
Yeah.
And there were so many differences. We could have a whole show on covering both teams and how things work and operationally, but we'll schedule that for a later date. But I say all of this because I was at the 4th and 31 Iron Bowl. That was my first year. And when I tell you, that environment, I've never been in anything like it. And I remember the game clock is ticking down, and it was right before, the 4th and 31 play. And how, Auburn in the field is, at field level in one of the end zones over the student section is they're basically at field level. There's not like a big drop off like at Bryant-Denny or even Sanford Stadium. And so I remember turning to this photographer and I was like, I'm grabbing your arm and just running. Like, I cannot get trampled. Like, this is not good. And so we're all preparing for Auburn to storm the field because this is all going in their favor, and the energy, the buzz, swag surfer just happened. And it's like, wow, this is going to be crazy. Not so fast. 4th and 31, Gravedigger, Jalen Milroe to Isaiah Bond. And I've never heard a stadium get so quiet. That's what stuck out to me. It was dead silent except for the Alabama, section on the other side of the field.
Yeah.
This like roar came from down there and the looks of despair. I mean, it was crazy. And then you have the Iron Bowl and Bryant-Denny, completely different atmosphere, completely different vibe. You cannot overstate the bad juju of Jordan-Hare if you're Georgia or if you're Bama. And so I think that people, when you look at the rest of this schedule, there's a slight like, Kalen DeBoer hasn't been there yet. Like, that's a little, intimidating in a sense. And Auburn, I mean, we saw their performance last week against OU. They've got some things they need to tweak, but their defense is solid. It travels well. And so it's just a great season. And like, I'm getting excited talking about games that we're still 2 months away from. And we got Georgia Bama this week.
Yeah, it's funny. We have a kind of a bit on the show where people have to earn their middle name. And so, like, for example, we pretty much strictly refer to Kirby as Kirby Paul Smart historically on the show because he's earned that.
Right,
and
he's earned it.
We always talk about how Brock Bowers' middle name earning game was the game at Jordan-Hare. That's when he became Brock Allen Bowers.
Brock Allen Bowers.
Yes, he earned all 3 names. Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those, here, boys, just jump on my back. I'll take us home.
I got it. I'll take us home. Trust me.
Because they should not have won that game.
No, and that was in the same season. And like I said, both of those games for such different reasons. And Auburn that year, I mean, they could not get really anything going in multiple facets. But yet, Georgia and Bama, they rise to the occasion.
Yeah. I think that's what's so interesting. And obviously, Coach Saban did such an excellent job building something there. And I do think in so many ways, Kirby is so much like him, so wired like him. I also do think, I always thought their relationship was unique. And I love when they were on the stage together because you could just tell.
Yeah. So,
their rapport, their dynamic is just, it's outstanding. And having Coach Saban now on game day, I absolutely love because he's so great. He's a character, right? Like my dad and I always talk, don't you think he is 100% like he was in The Blind Side where he walks in the living room and he's like, I love these window dressing.
Right. And what I heard from like filming that movie, there's some story about it, how he like didn't want to like do the line. So he just said what he would say anyways.
Just off the cuff. Yeah.
Off the cuff. Yeah.
My favorite Nick Saban story is, I think he told this at like, I can't remember if it was he got invited to speak at some event, big event, he's in a big ballroom and he's telling this story about who Miss Terry used to date in high school.
This is a great one.
And how he like went back for the reunion.
Yeah.
And her retort to him when he's like, look where you would have been. You'd have been wife of a gas station owner. And she tells, well, no, he would have been the head coach at Alabama. And I'm like, God, I love these two.
So good. I got one season under him. I just had one. It was my first season, actually. And I'm so grateful that I got that because like that totally changed. Like having to, ask him questions and like be in that facility under Saban. And I was 22 and I was like fresh out of college, fresh out of Georgia Southern. And my first job is, oh my gosh, like I have to talk to Nick Saban.
Yeah.
And like the excellence that he required from everyone, like you knew you had to be on. And so I'll share this story. This is one of my favorite stories to tell. So I had taken my job. My first game was Texas Bama in 2023. I'd never been to Tuscaloosa before. First time there, I am heading out on the field of Bryant-Denny Stadium before it was Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium.
Yeah.
And I remember finding Coach Saban in my camera and jumping back because I felt like I should have asked him before I even like looked at him. That was the first thing. And so a couple of weeks go by and it was actually Arkansas week. And my, boss at the time was like, hey, like you don't have to like get acclimated first, for Mondays. You don't have to ask him anything, like just kind of be there, absorb. And then post game is when, we need you to get some questions in. And so I remember sitting there, Seth, and I was so just like, man, this is so awesome. Like I'm sitting, I've got my little desk, I've got like my pink notebook with my pink pens. And I'm just like, I love my job. This is great. And so he comes in and like you could feel it when he came in that room. Like he'd be like 20 feet down the hall, but like you could sense him getting closer.
Yeah.
And so he gets up on the podium and then he's talking and I'm just like taking it all in, looking around. And there were people there, like it was a busier week than I expected. I remember thinking that. And how these, press conferences work, if you guys aren't familiar with, how media operates in that setting, you have your coach and then you have, typically students that have microphones. And then you have an SID that's directing the microphone. So it's not like a free for all, and there's a pattern to it. So you get called on, but you know that you have, a split second, you have a question before it gets to you. So I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I see this student appear next to me. And I'm thinking, I didn't raise my hand.
Yeah. I'm not ready. It's not my turn.
I'm not ready. I'm not quite there yet. And the student is sitting there and he's like about to hand me a mic. And, the other question ahead was just asked. And so Coach Saban is starting to answer it. And I'm thinking, okay, I have about 45 seconds. And like, I can't tell Coach Saban / the SID at the time, I'm not ready for this. Like, let's not go for this. So, and I remember I turned around and I looked at the back of the room at the TV people and like they had their hands raised and I'm thinking, okay, like there are people here that have a question that they're not even gonna get in yet. Like I have to rise. I have to do this. And so it came to me and I still don't know like where it like came to my brain. I said, okay, I'm gonna ask about Jermaine Burton because he had a good game last week. And so I remember I'm like, I guess I'm gonna do this. And the student hands me the microphone and he calls on me, whatever. And Coach Saban looks at me. And for a split second, I'm thinking, you've got to get something out. Like, you cannot freeze. And I was like, Coach, what is allowing for Jermaine Burton's success on the field like we've seen over the course of the last week? And I'm like shaking. I hand the microphone back, answers it, and good to go. And I remember my coworker texting me. He was like, that was a great question. Didn't know you were going to talk. I was like, I didn't either, but I did
me
it.
either.
Me neither. It was so good. But that's like my favorite story to tell. And I joked with that SID, later, he's now at Mizzou. And I was like, do you remember when you called on me? And like, he was like, no, I know. And he was like, that's a story I'll tell you. But basically, like, I knew that I didn't want to piss Coach Saban off. And so we had to mix things up. And you were unfortunately, the receiving end of the mix up. And
you were the sacrificial lamb.
I was the sacrificial lamb. And then thank goodness we did it. But that's one of my first, memories at Bama. And it only got crazier from there with the retirement and Coach DeBoer being hired and then eventually working in tandem with Alabama. So it's been quite the journey.
You got a minor cardiac condition from that experience.
Yes. I think I have like more gray hairs. I might have some more wrinkles because of it, but it was all worth it for sure.
Oh, I love that. I love that you got to be around the program with him. We've talked about that a lot. Obviously people that support different programs like, oh, we don't like Coach Saban and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, man, if you don't like Coach Saban, you don't like excellence. And like,
yes,
I don't really got much time for you. Like if you can't understand what he built there and kind of what he stands for, I don't understand you. Like he's what you want, right? That's what you want is him.
Exactly.
So,
and I think, one thing I do want to say is like Coach DeBoer being, seeing his transition into Alabama in his first season, now his second season, how he has led this program and like the staff and the players, it's really been cool to see. And I think that standard that Coach Saban started has been preserved through Coach DeBoer. And stylistically, are there a few differences? Absolutely. They're not the same person, but I have been really just like, grateful. And it's been a really cool opportunity to see how Coach DeBoer has led. And one element that I think is such a holdover from Coach Saban that Coach DeBoer has continued to emphasize is the respect level that, me personally, I've received from every single player, whether it's me coming to the, facility to do a sit-down interview in July when it's the middle of the summer, or it's a media scrum post-game, or it's a, Tuesday where we're meeting them after practice. Like standard of excellence and respect has not faltered, has not wavered. And I think that's something that, it's and same with the staff as well. Like I can't really speak highly enough about Coach DeBoer, the staff he's assembled, and the players inside that facility.
It is interesting. I thought when that hiring cycle started, I kept thinking, man, what an unenviable ask, right? To step in for the greatest coach in the history of college football at a program like Alabama, right? Where the people can say what they want, but it means more. It just does. Like not just SEC, it means more. Like it Alabama means more.
Yeah.
And so to come in and shepherd that transition, I thought, God, what a burden if you look at it one way, or what an opportunity to kind of shoulder that and have that experience. And I mean, I've been impressed with them. Like I said, to come in and you're always going to be the guy that's not Coach Saban. And that's so difficult, right? To try to then brandish your own legacy and become your own coach and not be followed by that shadow all the time. And so, yeah, I've been impressed with how he's handled it. And I thought it was a good hire. I still think it's a good hire.
Me too.
I think you spoke earlier about like the FSU loss being unforgivable. And I think that's the beauty of what Coach Saban built, is that the expectation now, even amongst the fan base, and this is important. We've talked about this a lot with the Georgia program, is everybody, even the fan base, because that energy I think permeates, has to expect to win. Because when you don't, everybody feels that, right? It's the, oh, what's going to go wrong? And Alabama's been so excellent for so long that now it's just, yeah, this is what we are. We're Alabama. We do this. And so, yeah, it's an outstanding case study in kind of what you want to do from a program building perspective. Well, let's talk about this week, because
let's do it.
Alabama, Georgia is fantastic, but even with that, there are just, and I feel like it's been this way each week, there are just awesome matchups all across the docket and programs that we have been so interested in. And the first one I want to talk to you about is Friday night. Okay. TCU heading to Tempe to play the Sun Devils. TCU coming off a big win in the battle for the Iron Skillet, and Arizona State also a big win after dropping one in Starkville to go in and steal one from the Baylor Bears in Waco. And so you got two programs who are still angling for a Big 12 title. Arizona State, I believe, 3.5-point home favorite here. I'm going to tell you something, EG. I love this TCU team because Josh Hoover can deal. Like, I love watching this kid play quarterback. And then, on the other side, you got Sam Leavitt, who, like, if you like football and you don't like watching that guy play football, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, he just loves it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm fascinated by this. I think Kenny Dillingham is one of the cooler stories in college football.
It is.
And so, yeah, what do you think about this one? Where do you sit on it?
So I'm kind of leaning ASU. And this is why. And I think that, I've heard a few talking points about this. And I will say this before we get started. I'm a better poker player than I am a sports bettor. So that's where my gambling lies, at the poker table. Yeah. But I'll try and give you guys my best insight on these games. So, with Arizona State, they've been punched in the mouth already, right?
Yep.
And so it's kind of like we know how they respond, Starkville, because of the way they followed it up. I don't know that about TCU yet, in my opinion. I haven't seen that. So I am leaning ASU with this game. I know the line is thin, and so I'm going to lean with the Sun Devils.
I like that. This is a fun game, number one, because it's Friday night, which I always love. I mean, I always think gives a little bit more intrigue because you just don't know kind of how everybody's going to sit playing on a Friday night. I always feel like the schedules is like a funny thing. The Big 12 to me thus far has been the most fun conference because it's going to be bizarre. Like, it's just going to be upside down, I think.
Great word to put it. Bizarre.
There's so much parity throughout that conference that you're talking 6 or 7 teams legitimately could be in Dallas at the end of the year. I have 3 siblings that went to KU. And so, I'm keenly interested in the Big 12 side and very interested in KU's story. I've said that I thought Mizzou's win over KU will get more impressive as the season goes on because I think that's a good football team too. Like, Lance Leipold does an outstanding job. But yeah, it's awesome to see. And there's another Big 12 matchup on our slate later. But this is one of those where if I was having to pick and sprinkle money on this, I'd probably go with TCU just because I think they know who they are. That's what they seem like to me. Like, and I also think the other part about them, which is fascinating, is nobody's talking about them. Nobody.
That's true. That's true.
They go into Chapel Hill and dump truck UNC, which granted, UNC is not a great football team, but that's what good teams do, right? They go win games that they're supposed to win. And then that SMU team, I love Kevin Jennings. I just think he is electric. And for them to kind of withstand, he had a great game Saturday. They withstood that and put up a game of their own. But this is a fun one. I like both these teams a ton. Yeah. And I think both could be in Dallas, and I'd be happy about it for either one of them. Also, let's go here. Both of them too, excellent uniforms. All right.
Yes. I love the fashion aspect of this.
Yes, we're very into that side of it.
We're very good.
Uni swag is like one of our favorite follows on Twitter.
Okay, good. Okay, we keep definitely some common ground there for sure. It's like I love obviously the sports side of college football, the
Yes.
stats, all that. But listen, when it comes to uniforms, I'm partial with my fashion background as well.
Yeah, we picked Tulane Ole Miss last week, and we were like, look, regardless of what happens, this is all uniform game right here.
I love the powder blue. Like you
So clean.
cannot go wrong.
It's so clean.
So good.
Yeah, and like Tulane does such a great job too. They have a lot of fun logo variations and stuff they do. Like, yeah, we're all about that. So TCU and Arizona State way up there on that, especially when Arizona State goes to icy whites. I love that.
So good. I'm also very happy it's Friday because for me, a lot of people ask, like, hey, what does your Saturdays look like? Like this has to be, I'm like, I'm fully consumed by Bama or, last season and 2 seasons it was Auburn. So like when I'm covering these games, it's like, my day it starts at least, 4 or 5 hours before kick.
Yeah.
And I'm there. So like I don't get to see like a full slate of college football, but the Friday games, of course, I get to be super locked in. So like last week with the bye, it was so nice because I sat down and I was like, I get to watch games all day. Like this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. Like stadiums are the worst place to follow games.
Yeah, and that's where I live every Saturday.
Yeah, like because there's never TVs. I feel like the internet coverage is never great with your phone at stadiums, and so like it's really really tough. My dad and I, which this was so fun, we were in Baltimore for a Orioles weekend set, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna reach out to Navy and see if they'll credential us for the game because my dad used to do radio broadcasts when I was a kid, like for our local small town station. Yeah, I said, hey Pop, we're credentialed for Navy. UAB on Saturday, so you got to shoot a show with me in front of the stadium pregame, and then we're going to sit in the press box and cover the game. He's like, I got to like be on the mic. I said, yes, you got to be on the mic. And so it's like my favorite thing that I've gotten to do with the show is we went inside Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium, shot a show. It was like the best. We had the best days.
That's so cool. I'm dying to get up to like Navy Army. I'd love to do the Navy Army game. That's definitely on my bucket list of events.
Yes, I want to do it in Philly is where I want to do it.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, I think
it's Baltimore this year.
Okay.
But yeah. So I've done a Navy game. I've not done an Army game, but I've been to West Point. A+. I mean, that campus is incredible.
Okay, that's like on my sports bucket list. Ryder Cup, I'm not there this weekend, unfortunately. And then Army, Navy, like I'm dying to get to both of those events.
Yeah, well, whichever one of us goes first, we should just drag the other one along.
Agreed. Okay, all right. Glad we can agree on that. Perfect.
Yeah, that's it. All right, next one on the docket is interesting for a lot of reasons. USC going to Champaign to play Illinois. The Illini obviously licking their wounds from an absolute beatdown at the hands of the Hoosiers last Saturday night. USC's interesting, right? Like Lincoln Riley has not done what I think the folks in LA thought he would do, but Jaden Maiva's outstanding and has had a really, really good year. They haven't played, I would say, excellent competition yet, but given what we saw from Fernando Mendoza on Saturday night against Illinois secondary, maybe they still aren't going to play anybody. This is my co-host James. He was my center in high school. It's one of his favorite teams because they run the barge formation 7-0.
Okay.
Yeah. So he loves Illinois. So yeah. So this game is USC is a 6.5 point road favorite. Where are you sitting on this one?
Well, I think the fact that both of these teams are ranked is also one of those things that just shows you like the state of college football. It's very interesting. And so I think with USC, we talked about how, Clay Helton left them to go to Georgia Southern. Lincoln Riley comes in. And, with this matchup, I think that Illinois, they're coming off such a beatdown. And like, it's not what they expected. I would say a lot of people talking about them, preseason. USC does have to travel. I think that does kind of, play a role in some of this. What time is the kick on this? Is it 12?
11 o'clock Central.
Yeah. That's an early one for USC.
Early start.
I'm going to lean USC ultimately to win, but I do think this will be a closer game than people may expect, especially that first half.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you on that. The 6.5 is a funny number, given the travel early start. And I think you bring up a good point. Brett Bielema and that group are prideful, and you don't get beat like that and it not put a little salt in the wound a little bit. And so I think they're going to come out pretty motivated. Plus, they're contrasting styles, right? Like I would not describe USC as a gritty, tough team, and that is Brett Bielema. That's always been his teams. And so, I think it's probably a tighter margin than that 6.5 for sure. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Okay.
Okay, next one on the docket. Notre Dame team who's had a very interesting start to their season. Heading to play Arkansas, which again, like we talked about earlier, not a fan base I've been more heartbroken for than these last 2 weeks, given how good they've looked and then just not been able to seal the deal, right? Two costly fumbles at the end of 2 straight ball games. Notre Dame, a 4.5-point road favorite going to play Woo Pig Suey. Where are you sitting on this one?
This is the bias in me. I'm going Arkansas.
Yeah.
I mean, logically, does it make the most sense? But does it make the least sense? I don't think so. I think that, Arkansas, we've seen flashes. And you know what's so frustrating for me is that it was 2 SEC media days ago. Okay, so not this past one, but the year before. And my question to Sam Pittman was, Coach, we've seen flashes of how good this team can be. What does it take to reach the next level? And I remember him saying, I love that question, and this is how we're going to do it. But it's been the same thing. It's like we can see it. It's so close. There are these elements and flashes where it's like this is a team that can't put the pieces together. And we talked about how much we love Sam Pittman at the beginning of this. I'm leaning Taylor Green. Let's go. Arkansas, you guys deserve this. Woo Pig.
I love that, especially home game, right?
Home game in Fayetteville.
Yeah, I think it's going to be electric. I think it's going to be a fun day. The other thing is, if you are of the betting inclination, I think the over is probably a pretty safe play in this game.
I think so.
Both of these teams have seemingly been allergic to defense as things have progressed. And CJ Carr and Notre Dame's offense seem like they have figured it out. I mean, what a game against Texas A&M a couple weeks ago. And so, yeah, I don't hate that pick at all. 4.5 too is what a weird number.
Yeah, again, 6.5, 4.5. I'm not loving these.
Yeah, I don't like that, and I really don't like that hook. I have no feel for this, but I like Arkansas to cover here. I mean, I feel good about that. I just think too, you come off 2 losses like that, it's kind of a put up or shut up, right? Like you got to figure out who you
Back
are
against
and
the wall.
do it. What a noon slate! Like those 3 games to kick off Saturday, unreal.
Unreal. I will be getting ready to head in to the stadium, I guess. So typically I get in there 3 hours before kick. So this will be my getting ready time, maybe some brunch, and I will be glued to the TV for sure.
Perfect. A little mama's boy as you get ready.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the play. Yeah,
okay.
That's the play. Okay, next one. I love this game too for a number of reasons. Number one, Washington is on our list, probably top 3 of stadiums that we want to visit.
Yeah.
I would very much like to boat gate while we're there.
Yes, I think that'd be so cool.
So awesome. And so Ohio State heading to Seattle to play the Huskies. They are a 7.5-point road favorite in one of the tougher places to play in America. How you feeling about this?
That number was larger than I expected. Now, I do think Ohio State, I will take them to win, but I think that it's going to be one of those games where, after, I don't think it's going to, they're not going to, Washington won't go quietly.
Yes.
I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
I do expect Ohio State to win, but based on what I've seen from both of these teams this season, I think that Washington is a high caliber team. I think this will be a good kind of bolster for Ohio State. They'll be tested in a few different ways. And I think, they'll come away saying, ooh, that was a little closer than we expected. But to me, I feel like when you're going to Washington, you have the time difference, you have these different extenuating elements that's kind of baked into it, right? And so I would expect Ohio State to win, but I do think that it's going to be against a hard-fought Washington team.
This feels like a know my name game, meaning when this game is over with, the United States of America is going to know DeMond Williams Jr.'s name. I just think he is one of the more undersold quarterbacks in America. You can tell Jedd Fish absolutely loves him, and he can do it both ways, right? He can hurt you through the air, he can hurt you with his legs. And I think if he's able to have the performances they've grown accustomed to with him against a defense of Ohio State's caliber, I just think he's going to leave an impression in a lot of people's minds. And look, man, Jedd Fish is a good football coach. He had built something really good at Arizona, takes the job, obviously, with Washington when Coach DeBoer left. It's like, this is the butterfly effect of college football, right?
All connected.
Yeah, and so I'm excited to see this. I'm with you. I very much think Ohio State will win the football game. They are a better Jimmy's and Joe's roster.
Yes, I would agree.
But that's 7.5. I just think it's a tighter ball game than that. That's where I sit.
I think so, too. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I do think Ohio State has the advantage of size and just roster-wise, but I don't think it's going to be as maybe prevalent as some people are expecting in terms of score.
Yeah, I agree. And the travel things, that's important too, I think, because that's a big trip to go east to west and kind of reset the clock and do that. So,
Yeah.
okay, this is another one that I love, and given how the season has gone thus far, this is a narrative versus reality game for me, okay? LSU heading to Oxford to play Ole Miss. I would pay hard-earned money to be in the Grove if I could be. I know that it is going to be a time, chandeliers, and champagne flowing. It'll be outstanding. LSU's funny, right? Because everybody kind of thought, okay, hey, they went into Clemson and they beat this team that everybody thinks is going to go X, Y, and Z. And then Clemson has not been what anybody expected. And so then you start going, well, wait a minute. If that was LSU's like signature win and they only put up 20 points against Florida, who's also not excellent, where are we at with the Tigers, right?
Right.
And this Ole Miss team, which Trinidad Chambliss, this is the beauty of this sport, EG. What a story, right? Kids playing at Ferris State. Everybody and their mom thinks Austin Simmons, including us, is going to have the best year
19,
ever.
like young buck, let's do it.
Yes, and now he's got Wally pipped by Trinidad Chambliss.
That is a great analogy. That is awesome.
It's just, I just think it's so cool. And that offense has just looked all cylinders with him. And so this is interesting because one of the questions we had about LSU coming into the year was not the offense, right? Everybody's like, hey, the offense is going to be, we're all set there. It's, can the defense do something? Will Harold Perkins reemerge? They've been excellent on defense.
Yeah.
It's the offense that has looked a little stagnant. And so, man, I have no feel for this at all. Like, what's this going to look like?
I don't know. I think that also the storylines around this game, there's so much. Like this is like this is going to be a classic.
Yeah.
I think with LSU specifically, there were such high expectations coming in, but we haven't really seen the why yet. Why were you guys this highly, like what am I missing here? And I think that when you play a team like Ole Miss that is very sure of themselves and who they are, even with what's going on at quarterback. And I'm curious going forward, like what kind of happens with Austin Simmons and where that leads based on, I think we'll learn a lot too after this weekend, especially. And I saw, I think it was the guys at CBS, and they were talking about the age difference in Trinidad and Austin Simmons. He's my age, Trinidad, 24. Austin Simmons is 19. That's crazy. Big difference. And so I think that you're going to see, an advantage slightly there just in terms of decision making and things like that. But, and again, this isn't a knock on Austin Simmons at all. I think that, the potential there is still there. It's real.
Yes.
But right now, you're in a position to where next man up mentality and it's working, and we're seeing the offense really come to life. It being in Oxford, I think definitely benefits for sure. Curious what Brian Kelly's thoughts will be post game. I think now at this point, we all are a little curious how he'll respond to some questions. But LSU really needs this in more ways than one. I'm slightly leaning Ole Miss, very slightly.
This is one where I could see this going either way. But
either way,
Ole Miss's ability on offense is fascinating to me. And the Vaught is just going to be, shaken, I think, from an atmosphere perspective. Also, we would be remiss if we did not talk about the
photo.
Yes, the photo. Exactly. Yes. It's so great, right? And the fact that it involves Lane Kiffin just makes it even better because I feel like he is so, I don't know. It's just perfect.
It's perfect. Does it surprise me? No.
Absolutely not.
If this was going to happen to anyone, any two programs, this makes sense.
How about Lane commenting on the post, take the over?
Take the over. What?
God, I love this sport. God, I love this sport.
It's so good.
Excellent.
It's like reality TV meets the highest level of competition in sports. That's the SEC. Truthfully, that's what it is.
I was texting my buddy and I was like, this can't be real. Is this an Onion article? This can't be real.
Literally.
Yeah.
It's real. Welcome.
Oh God, it's real. So good. It's so good. Well, I can't wait for this. I think they were a little salty that this is 3:30 kick. Yeah, which I get. Yeah. It's a huge game. This shows how great I think this docket is Saturday, is the fact that this is 3:30 kick. But this is another one. Next game, Auburn coming off a very tough loss at the Palace.
Yeah.
Especially given the comments on the Oh, I mean, just so
officiating.
tough. Like, really tough way to lose. And then, Oklahoma loses John Mateer, who played the whole game
Hmm.
injured. So many things going on. This Auburn team going to College Station to play Texas A&M. Texas A&M a 6.5-point home favorite. Had a monster win in South Bend. Obviously, they feel great about their roster. I think between Marcel Reed and Casey Concepcion, I mean,
Yeah.
they're a must watch.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I think back to last year, the Texas A&M Auburn game. If you remember, I think it went into 4 overtimes.
Yeah.
I was at that game. That was a field storm, in Jordan Hare, so I did get to experience that.
Yeah.
But it's one of those games where I think the nature in which Auburn lost last week, and I know everyone has opinions on this, and I would love to hear kind of like, if you're not an Auburn fan, if you're just a college football fan, what your thoughts are, because you can't win a game with 10 sacks. You
Yeah.
can't.
Yep.
However, there are certain things that also went into that final score.
Mhm.
But, and then that's kind of where I'll leave it at that. I don't know with Auburn. This is to me how do I put this? How they look the next 6 games is
Yep.
going to be on this game.
Yep.
Because who is Auburn? We've
Mhm.
seen, against Baylor. Okay, like that was a little unexpected. Not many people expect them to win that game, I would say. I think there were some, but and you've kind of seen them start building. You also see what they did right against OU, right? They held Mateer 22 points. And one of the touchdowns, could have been called back, whatever. And so it's one of those things where Auburn's defense, and I said at the beginning of this, they are solid. DJ
Mhm.
Durkin has that defense in a really good spot. But is it enough against Marcel Reed? I don't know. How do they handle adversity on the road in College Station? I have not traveled to College Station yet. That's on the bucket list.
Yeah.
I have not been there. But I think that this is going to be really interesting to see how Auburn starts, especially. If they have a quick start, Jackson Arnold, does what he's been doing. I also want to see, is Auburn relying on Arnold's legs because they have to, or because that's just kind of what's taking place in the moment and he's kind of doing what he thinks is not best, but that's his decision-making process. And if they need it, they can air it out to Cam Coleman like we saw against OU. Or is it more so we have to rely on his legs? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes, that was one of the things we had questioned about them going into the season is obviously they have one of, if not the most talented wide receiver rooms in the SEC. And so you kind of figured they're ripe to throw the football and be very vertical from an offensive perspective. And I wouldn't say they've necessarily been that thus far, right?
No.
It's been much more, hey, we're going to ground and pound and Jackson's going to use his legs. And it has been interesting. And I thought it was especially interesting against Oklahoma. I just thought there was opportunities there for them to score where it just didn't happen. And yeah, I mean, the sacks is another thing. And you start asking questions about, well, how much of that is on the offensive line versus how much of that is on, hey, we're holding the football too long. We're not making decisions. And I think when you get to that number of sacks, it's probably a little bit of both. I don't think you pin it just one place. But yeah, I think you bring up an outstanding point about this game could be how does the rest of Auburn's season go game, because they have been snake bit in a lot of ways the last 2 years. And so you start to go, here we go again.
Here we go.
Yeah. And so I think culturally, this is one they kind of need to have. And look, man, they're another one where you start the year in Waco, and then you got to go on the road to the Palace and play Oklahoma and Norman. And now you're back on the road in College Station to play A&M. The one good thing for them, they will be battle tested for sure. Nothing is going to intimidate them. So I do think that's the thing they have, the kind of feather they have in their cap with this ball game is environmentally, they've been in some big type atmospheres already. And I will say this too. I even thought this Saturday, they do seem to like each other.
Yeah.
Like they seem to be pulling the same rope, which isn't always the case, especially with a Hugh team, to be frank. You just don't know culturally how they're going to be.
We saw that with Peyton Thorne last year, kind of like some adversities, some underlying currents I felt like we were dealing with each week, even between Peyton Thorne and Hugh. So I like that point that this team culturally seems to be on the same page, and that's really important.
Yeah. So I say all that to say I have a not much feel for this, and the 6.5 number's funny to me because as good as A&M's offense has been, their defense has not been great. And so I do think Auburn can do enough to exploit them. Now, can they do enough to win the football game? I don't know. We'll see. Even given what they saw with John Mateer last week, I don't think Auburn has seen a weapon like Marcel Reed. He's special. And they have enough edge talent where it's kind of the perfect storm with how they run their offense. So, yeah, I don't know. I got nothing. I got no feel in this one. I do like it though. Okay, next on the list, Indiana going to play Iowa. Iowa, who, as my co-host would affectionately say, has trouble with the forward pass. And an Indiana team that does not have trouble with the forward pass. My co-host and I joked, we became very smitten with IU last year, and we went and covered Old Oak and Bucket.
Really?
It was about 5 degrees the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Yeah, it was awesome, EG. We did Paul Bunyan's Axe on Friday, 11 a.m. local kick in Madison. Then we drove down to Bloomington and did Old Oak and Bucket Saturday night. And it was the first time either one of us had been to Bloomington. Let me tell you, top 5 college town in the United States.
Really?
It is outstanding.
What is the vibe? Like, I need to know more.
So that was our response. We got there and we're like, this place is awesome. So first off, the campus is beautiful, and all the athletic facilities are directly on campus.
That's so
nice. And then campus literally abuts up to their main street. So it reminded me of Athens in that way.
Okay.
Where like you walk off the edge of campus and you're downtown.
Yeah.
And then once you're downtown, they have all these cool like bars and restaurants you can hit all in this main drag. And so we went to this place and hung out called Nick's English Hut, which is like 100 years old. It's been in Bloomington forever. We were so enamored with it that we had their owner on like a month later to hear the entire story of Nick's English Hut. Because we were trying to do this series called Campus Icons, where we essentially find the place in each college town where if you visit, you should go, and then just have them tell their story. So we had Rags on. And he told the whole story. And so, EG, you play a game there. They're famous for this game called Sink the Biz. So you tell them, hey, we want to play Sink the Biz. And they bring you a pitcher of beer, a big bucket, and then like a little Boilermaker glass that goes in the bucket. And then you go around the table pouring beer in casually until you sink the biz. And then whoever sinks it has to drink it.
Oh, my gosh.
And so we go in there and like every table's just got buckets. People playing Sink the Biz everywhere.
That's so fun.
It was just so fun.
That.
And so, but we just had the best time. They have another place that's super famous called Upstairs Pub. So like you go in the bar and there is a full like assembly hall scoreboard in there where they're keeping score of the basketball and football games. Like it just had so much it to it as a town. So yeah. So anyways, long way of telling you that we are very, very rose-colored glasses when it comes to IU now. Yeah.
All right. So Curt Cignetti, what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so I bought a Cignetti shirt while we were there, the one that looks like a pack of Marlboros.
Yep.
Yeah. He's interesting. His post-game press conference was interesting. I mean, he's very, let's just say this. His first name is fitting, EG, because he's very curt.
Very curt. So, quick story about Mr. Curt Cignetti. He was the coach at JMU before he got this job.
Yes, go Dukes.
They played Georgia Southern. In 2022.
Yeah.
I was a sideline reporter. AMU comes in ranked. They were 25 in the nation. Georgia Southern upsets them. And I remember thinking, based on our pregame meetings and prepping for the game, praying that Georgia Southern would win, because even if JMU wins, he's going to be so pissed off in this post-game interview because this was not supposed to go this way. Georgia Southern wins, all is well, but I will never forget that. And he was in Coach Saban's tree of coaches. He's in the Saban tree. He
was a wide receiver coach at Alabama. He's got a cool story. His daddy was a college coach, and he ended up coaching at where his dad. I'm pretty sure his dad coached at West Virginia, and Coach Cignetti played for him at West Virginia. And I'm pretty sure his dad got fired while Coach Cignetti was on the roster, and he stayed out and played. Hope I'm not confusing his storyline with his brother's storyline, but anyways, it's something to that effect. He's got a cool coaching lineage story, and he went back and coached IUPUI. He essentially decided, I don't want to be an assistant the rest of my life. I'm going to be a head coach, and I'll do it the hard way if I have to do it the hard way. And so that's been the cool part to kind of see the success at IU. And I've told people, if I was Scott Strickland in the Florida Gators program, I would have already let Billy go, and I'd already be having conversations with him because
That's a great point. I haven't heard of
as like a
anyone
program
talking about
flipper,
that. Yeah,
because that's what they need right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I haven't heard his name be thrown in the mix with that potential job opening, if you will.
I do wonder, he does seem very Rust Belt to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think where he is probably a good fit recruiting wise and culturally. Yeah. I don't know how he would play in the South recruiting.
Yeah. Especially
I could be
Florida,
wrong about that.
But there's a lot of recruiting too in the state of Florida. There's a lot that goes into it because you're also with Gainesville, you can pull South Georgia as well. So the competition is very steep, and it's a little different than what he's probably dealing with at IU.
So that's a long way to ask you. How do you sit on this?
This is one that, you know, as we like kind of get to these final few on the pick 'em list, I don't really have much of a informed opinion, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't have much of I haven't seen much of these teams. I haven't been able to kind of analyze them. I'm going to go IU. I think that, you know, you convinced me with Nick's English Pub.
Love it.
Kind of want to go there.
You should.
But Iowa State, I don't know much about that team in terms of what they're putting on tape right now.
Yeah.
And I know more about Indiana. So I think that that's kind of where I'm at. I think that with a Kirk Cincinnati team, they have an edge to them and a grit to them of like, you know, we should be a playoff caliber team. And we saw a lot of discussion about that last season. So I'm leaning IU on this one.
I like it. We can get on board with that very much.
Okay, good.
All right, the next one, this is another interesting one just because I think both these teams are interesting. Arizona traveling to Ames to play Iowa State. Iowa State has...
Okay, I said Iowa State had Indiana, so I switched those. IU has Iowa.
Yes.
Okay. There we go.
Kirk Ferentz and the boys are solid, obviously.
Okay.
Offensively, struggling, I would... Yeah. Seemingly year to year, which you would, you know, they went out and got this kid, I think his name's Mark Gronowski, who was at maybe South Dakota State or something. So everybody's kind of like, oh yeah, we're finally going to figure this out. Nope. Still having problems. Although they did put up 31 against Rutgers a couple weeks ago. Maybe I should give them a little more credit. I'm being hard on them, EG.
Perhaps.
This is my problem.
That's okay.
All right, so Arizona going to Ames, play Iowa State.
Yeah.
Rocco Beck leading the helm there at Iowa State. I love how this kid plays. Matt Campbell probably gets less credit than he should for what an excellent job he's done building that program. Arizona's interesting, right? Like they were horrendous last year and have played really well to start the year. Nice win against Kansas State. Again, this is that Big 12 conference where I just feel like there's so many things going on. Yeah. It's just all out there. So how are you feeling this one?
Yeah, I would say so 6.5 point favorite.
6.5.
I think that, you know, that makes sense. And I like what you said too. Like there's some credit due that isn't being earned. I think this is an opportunity. Arizona is at their place, make some noise in a good way and really kind of refine what they're doing to continue on this season, hitting those marks and firing all cylinders.
I like it. This is one that's tough because like Iowa State, given they had to start the year in Ireland, I've thought about this with K-State too. Like K-State's margin has been so small in the games that they've lost, and their season obviously hasn't looked like you wanted it to. But that's a big trip, right? And like to come back, and you kind of got sea legs a little bit, and so I thought it was big for Iowa State to have a bye last week to kind of recalibrate,
rejuvenate.
Yeah. But this tough matchup. 6.5 feels a little big to me.
Okay.
Iowa State's look good, but they haven't looked dominant. I don't know. It's one of those things too where I'm thinking more. I think I'm biased more too by Arizona beating K-State, and maybe some of that's a commentary on K-State. I don't know. This is a tough one too, though. I don't know where to sit on it.
I would rather have more games where we're like, man, like I just don't know.
Yes.
All right, this is an easy slate. We'll get to next week. Call it
exactly. And I think it's gotten harder, like we talked about earlier, with the rosters. It's so much harder to say, okay, yes, this team is deeper and better, and this is how it's going to go. So
there's so much more parity, and I think that the elite rosters of the old aren't as. You're not going to have. Let me put it this way: you know, your third string isn't going to be first, second round draft pick anymore, like it used to be at some programs. Now, you know, it's kind of evening out slightly, I would say.
Okay, next one on the docket is, I would say, as looked forward to, as big as the game you're going to be covering between the hedges
Yes.
on Saturday night. Oregon going to Penn State, Whiteout, night game. Going to be a crazy atmosphere at Beaver
Crazy
Stadium.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
My goodness.
This Oregon team is fascinating. This Penn State team is fascinating. Obviously, tons of preseason hype for the Nittany Lions. I feel like Oregon in some ways been lying in the weeds a little bit.
I think
And
they
so
like that.
this game is, man, it's got all the juice, and I'm jacked up about it. Penn State 3.5-point home favorite. How you feeling this one?
So I think that, and that's what I was going to bring up about Oregon. It seems like they're just kind of in a waiting pattern right now. They're waiting to pounce, and I think that that's something that Dan Lanning does not mind at all. Please don't talk about us. Just let us do our thing over here on the West Coast, and then when we come to you, you'll remember us again. You'll kind of have that more discussion. Now, I do think, obviously, the environment is going to play a role in this. So, you would have to hope if you're Oregon, you're preparing well with crowd noise and just that whole atmosphere that they're about to step into. And I'm not turning my nose up at Penn State by any means. I think that they have the advantage in some ways, but I really like this matchup. I'm going to lean Oregon here. And again, I don't necessarily I could see this game going either way. I do, like I said, I think the environment, the whiteout, I'm dying to get to a whiteout game. I think that's one of the coolest, traditions in college football. But Oregon has this edge to them. And I think that these are the situation games that we've seen in the past they respond really well in.
Yeah, I love that pick. I think, this is a lot of bias too. I love Dan. I just think, first off, I love his story. It's just, hey, look, this is what I want my life to be, and I'm going to elbow my way in however I can to get into college coaching and kind of take the path he's taken. And so I also just love the way he leads. And
yeah, I love the culture of Oregon.
100%. Yes. Like, I also just loved Coach Gundy obviously made his comments leading into their game. And like, Dan just doesn't run from that stuff. He just takes it head on. And after the game, he goes, well, not that we needed it, but it didn't hurt having a little gasoline on the fire this week.
Exactly. Like, I love that. Like, he's so
absolutely.
good. So
you just go, it'd be so easy to play for this guy. So yeah, I like them a lot. And I think too, there's no pressure on them because this is the narrative of James Franklin can't win the big game. James Franklin is 4-20 against top 10 team, all the things, right? So Penn State's wearing all that weight,
They've got that monkey
preseason
on their
expectation.
back.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm with you. I think a lot of ways Oregon's playing with house money. And
I think that's exactly how I'd put it.
Yeah. And they got the roster to do it with too. And so this one's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's great.
Well, look, I know you're not going to pick this one because you're working the game, but give me your feel, give me your thoughts on both these teams going into the game Saturday night, Alabama and Georgia. Georgia's 3.5-point home favorite or somewhere in that vicinity. Going to be an awesome night in Athens.
It's going to be a great night, and I'm excited for the environment to see, Athens kind of come alive. And we talked about that in-game experience. I think that this is going to be such a classic for so many reasons. I think Gunnar Stockton, his mobility is something that Alabama's defense has to respond well to. That is something that has kind of plagued them in their losses, has been containing a mobile quarterback. And when you look back at last season with Carson Beck, that was not the case with him. And so you're getting a much different guy leading this team. So the defense definitely has their work cut out for them. I think offensively for Bama, I really want to see that offensive line protect Ty Simpson. If you can do that and also establish the run game when you need to, while also knowing that, hey, we have these weapons, we have these tight ends that, we can make something happen with, that's going to be really, really big. I think Alabama does have an advantage with their receivers and Georgia's secondary. I think it's a little bit of an uneven matchup. When it comes to their defensive line, they've got size. They're long. They're SEC, caliber, Georgia, what you expect. And I will say, I think that when we talk about these rosters kind of evening out a little bit, I will say it's not, Georgia's defensive lines of old, but I still think that they're elite in different facets. So it's, how can the offensive line protect Ty Simpson? And then with Alabama's defense too, another element is you've got to get Gunnar Stockton on the ground. Like, they're doing a solid job of pressuring the quarterback, but he has to get on the ground. And that was something I asked Coach Womack a couple weeks ago. And he said, schematically, there are some things that I need to do better. And we saw flashes of that against Wisconsin. But Wisconsin and Georgia, two very, very different teams. So I want to see that come together. But it's such a good matchup. And I think the storylines leading into this, like, you can't really ask for anything more. And I'm also wanting to see too, can Alabama maintain that intensity and that energy for 4 quarters? Because even against Wisconsin, we kind of saw it taper off. Ryan Williams said that the drops that he had in the right, in the end zone should have been even more yards for Ty Simpson. That was contagious because then we saw Latair Brooks drop one as well. So it's like, how can you keep this up through 4 quarters and not start to taper? Because you can't do that in Athens. And I think Alabama needs a fast start. I think that they need keep their tempo going. Think about this. What we saw first drive against FSU, it was a 10-minute opening drive. And we're thinking, wow, like, this is great. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Like, this is going to be a, easy night for Bama and we'll get out of here, head back to Tuscaloosa. That was not the case. So how do you build? How do you execute? And I think that based on what I've seen, that's definitely been a focal point for this team. And I think that they have an edge to them that didn't exist prior to FSU. And I feel like a lot of people are saying, well, EG, like, why did it not? Like, come on, like, you have to prepare well for all your opponents. Totally hear that. Absolutely. However, you get punched in the mouth. This is the response you want from this team. You want them to be saying these things because they are frustrated. And the Deontay Lawson put it as like, we are now very aware we're not untouchable anymore. And so I think that to have that mindset going to Athens, you need that. And it's gonna be a great game. And I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah. Oh, the theater is going to be outstanding. I cannot wait. I'm so fired up that you're going to be there to cover it.
Yes.
Well, look, thank you so much for spending time with us today. It was outstanding. Please tell our listeners how they can follow you and support you.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed this so much. This was great. I love when you kind of get off on, college football tangents and you look and it's like, we've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes. It's great.
Yeah.
But you can find me, my Twitter X account and TikTok is at MEG_sports. And on Instagram, it's __MEG. And then I'm also a part of Cover Crimson. We'd love to have you on there where we break down Alabama football. Maybe you guys are just college football fans in general. Alabama's playing you this year. Come join us. We'll talk about the matchup and things of that nature. And then I also work with Yay Alabama, and I give behind-the-scenes exclusive interviews with players and coaches from Alabama football. And those are always a great opportunity to learn different things that like you may not get just with like the media availability. So we would love to have you both places. So, if you want some Alabama football in your life, I'm definitely the place to be for sure.
Yeah, and we will link all that in our show notes, and we'll post some clips from the show and link EG on everything. And look, if you have been hanging out with us this long and you're not head over heels a fan of EG, I don't know what's wrong with you. I can't help you if you're not in that boat now. So please support her. Go check out all her content. Rising star. We're just going to say that, okay? So, well, look, EG, it was awesome to have you. Awesome to get to chat with you and have a fantastic time in Athens on Saturday night.
Thanks, Seth. Thank you.